I'm so full, I think I ate too. Is that dessert? Remember when you were a kid and you tried to convince your parents that you're just full and cannot eat a single bite more from your lunch or dinner, but then you wanted some dessert and your parents would think you did that because you just wanted to avoid eating the food they made you and then stuff your face with chocolates? So they went, nah, you didn't eat your food so you don't get any dessert. And then you would use the excuse you probably heard from your granny that there's always room for dessert because dessert doesn't go to the stomach, it goes to the heart. Ugh, that's actually the most sickening thing I've heard ever in my life. And it's giving me the creeps. I mean, imagine your heart being full of sweet, sticky I'm basically having a heart attack while just thinking about it. Or there's always room for dessert because there's a separate dessert stomach. Well, here we go. Your parents were wrong and you were kinda right. So send them this video right away. Hey parents, science is against you, sorry. Sensory specific satiety. So what is sensory specific satiety? It's basically the experience when we eat one food to fullness. If scientist people didn't want to be so exact with their naming of stuff all the time, it would be called sensory specific boredom. Our senses tell us we are no longer wanting to eat any more of that specific food. We are getting fuller, obviously, but combine this with the fact that our flavor sensing system is overloaded with this specific food's flavor, and it is now becoming boring. If you then present a dessert or generally a new flavor experience, something that is not boring yet, because it does not have to be real, proper food for you to get bored. You can experience the same thing with something sweet as well. Our stomachs are not bored anymore and create an appetite, hence the dessert stomach. In other words, dinner is boring compared to the treat that could follow. Chocolate, cookies, ice cream, and then our brains override this fullness feeling for the pleasure of dessert. But why does our stomach do that? Why does it get bored of some stuff and then not bored anymore when new stuff arrives? Does this mean that we could in fact keep eating forever if we just did not experience this boredom? Yes, it does, kinda. Our stomach and physiology have the ability to absorb nutrients and energy to excess. Evolutionary speaking, this was a great survival mechanism. In times when food was plentiful, you could eat and your body would store what it could for times where you did not have access to a lot and thus make you survive a dry patch. But why then get bored of some foods and want to eat others? Well, here the argument is that a healthy diet needs to be varied, and therefore our brains have evolved to reward a varied diet, to tell us that changes in what we consume are good, to make sure that we indeed get all the nutrients we need to survive from one or the other food. And yes, sugar is very important as well, so the prospect of dessert after a meal is something appealing to us because it's different. And again, this applies to any food. If your stomach was bored by candy, you would welcome a nice salad or a few potatoes. Change in appeal during a meal keeps us going, keeps us eating. This also means that we can keep eating a long while after we have been actually not hungry anymore, which is not so great for the waistline and, more importantly, not healthy in the long run. Remember that the evolutionary adaptation to eating as much as possible to make sure not to die of starvation the next weeks does not really apply in most parts of the world anymore. So while it may not be an extra physical stomach for dessert, the reward chemicals that your brain produces have a similar effect, and it does indeed make you have an appetite for sweets, even though a minute before you were absolutely sure you would never be able to put a single bite in your mouth ever again. Those chemicals tell you that new food is interesting and good and you should eat it at the exact same time as they're telling you that the food you've already been eating is boring and we've had enough of it, thank you very much. Super short video, cool. Like, subscribe, share, and see you next week with more science around the human body, behavior, and cognition. And I'm gonna grab something to eat now.